Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Worldhoppers. This is a collaborative booktube channel where all of the AdSense and proceeds from our merch are donated to charity. So today we have two special guests with us. We have Vish from Books with B, and new in the first time on the Worldhoppers channel, we have Abby from the channel Abby Salter. So today we will be doing a spoiler-filled book chat for A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas, the fourth book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. So we have a lot of fun discussion to have today about this chunky book. And so usually whoever is new to the Worldhoppers channel, we'll just give a little introduction and then we'll have Abby answer the questions first. So Abby, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little about your channel?
Hi, I'm Abby from the channel Abby Salter. I'm British. I started my channel last year and I mainly read fantasy books, although I'm trying to dive a little bit more into science fiction. I do themed reading vlogs, a few discussion videos, and yes, that's me.
Awesome. So I think that let's just start out talking about our rating for A Court of Silver Flames. So we'll go Abby, Vish, and then, it's backwards, and then me.
I gave it like a 4 to 4.5 stars. I think I finished it and I was like 5 stars. And then as time's gone on, I've reflected a bit more and I've sort of lowered it a little bit.
Okay.
I gave it 4.75. I didn't rate it 5 stars just because I had little issues. So it's like 4.75 was like a good rating for me for that.
Seems like we're all kind of on the same page. I did what you did, Abby. Like upon finishing, I was like, this is 5 stars. But I've left it at the 5-star rating just because the emotional impact I think that it had on me. But I did have some issues with it. I don't think that it was a perfect book, and there were definitely a couple things I would have done differently. So it doesn't make sense for me to give it a 5 stars, but I'm such an emotional reader, and 5 stars are usually solely based on a feeling for me, if that makes sense. So yeah. I was like, I'm just giving it a full 5 stars. So
that's fair. It was a bit harsh not giving it 5 stars because of how much I enjoyed my time reading it. But then I was like, but I had these issues with it, so I feel a bit conflicted on that. So it's definitely a really positive reading experience.
Yeah, 100%.
And I'm curious because I was talking to Vish before you jumped on, Abby, and have you seen any bad reviews for it so far?
I haven't seen any videos, but I have heard of one person who had a lot of critiques on it in Discord. And
oh yes, yeah, I remember that.
It almost would have been interesting if we had that to that opinion in here today, because it seems like most of us are on the same page here. Mm-hmm. So I want to ask each of you, were you hesitant going into the book, or were you fully excited? Just can I hear a little bit of your guys' experience with reading Sarah J. Maas's books, as I'll share my experience afterwards.
I was very excited to dive into it. I've been reading Sarah J. Maas for years. I think I started reading her books when Crown of Midnight first came out, so 2014, I think. And then I've just been reading them as and when they were released since then. So I've had a very positive experience with her books and have been pretty much loving everything she's ever written. The only hesitancy was that I wasn't a massive fan of Nesta in the ACOTAR series. And so I was a bit am I going to really like this? Because I don't necessarily like this character choice and would prefer potentially other characters to have the focal point of the story.
Right, yeah.
I started reading Sarah J. Maas, I think 2016. I think Heir of Fire just came out, so that's the first time I read her books. And then I read the ACOTAR series in 2019 for the first time. And Abby knows, but ACOMAF is my favorite book of all time.
Okay.
And so Sarah J. Maas is just the greatest for me, just because of that. So for A Court of Silver Flames, I was excited just because I did a back-to-back reread of ACOTAR just before it came out. I was very excited for it because of that. And I understand what you meant by Nesta, and like you were very hesitant going into the book for that. But I feel that with Sarah J. Maas, she can twist your opinions on characters so well. So I wasn't too worried. But what I was worried about is that I would stop liking Sarah J. Maas. That's always been a fear for me. But obviously that's not the case this time.
Right.
So I was very, very excited.
Okay, cool. I have like a little bit different experience. So I think same with you. I started reading the Throne of Glass series, I think right before Heir of Fire came out, sometime around then, because I know I had to wait for them to be released. So I read that series first, and I actually like that series more than the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. But I absolutely loved the A Court of Thorns and Roses trilogy when I first read it. Like, I loved it. It was like the greatest thing ever to me. It kind of like got me reading fantasy again. But my reading tastes have changed so much since then. So I was so nervous to pick this book up because, you know, like when you have something that's a favorite and then you read it again and you don't like it, that is my fear, and why I haven't read A Court of Thorns and Roses again. And I might love it if I read it again for the second time, but I don't want anything to like change my experience and my feelings about it. So I was like, you know what? I remember it. I'm just going to go with it and pick up the sequel. And because I guess part of the reason is I would love to hear what you guys thought of A Court of Frost and Starlight, because I didn't like it. I don't know if I just was reading other things that I was more interested in. And so when it wasn't like a lot of action or a lot going on other than their little day-to-day interactions, so I was let down by that. And then I had a couple problems with Crescent City. I still liked it, but I was so hesitant going into this book. I almost like wasn't going to read it. And I think that's partially why I ended up giving it 5 stars, because I'm like, I was so nervous. And to me, she like knocked it out of the ballpark for what the goal of this book was. She just blew me away. Like, I was so shocked. But yeah, so that's interesting. We are all Sarah J. Maas fans here.
Yeah, I reread the original trilogy, but I listened to the audiobooks like in December and January because I realized I couldn't remember anything from ACOWAR. But I didn't reread A Court of Frost and Starlight.
Okay.
Because I thought it was fine when I read it as the novella. Like, it was nothing really happened in it. It was just filler. But I didn't feel the need to ever reread it.
Yeah.
I didn't hate it.
I reread it because I wanted a preview of Nesta and Cassian. I just wanted to see like how their interaction was before I went into this book, just so it's like fresh in my memory how she was before. So that's why I reread A Court of Frost and Starlight, but I still like Court of Frost and Starlight a lot, just because like we're just following the characters and we're not doing anything. That's great.
I mean, I definitely feel that way about some books as well. And I will say there were a couple things that were brought back up from the original trilogy that I had to message a couple people and be like, remind me what happened here, because to be honest, I can't remember. So I don't think it really hindered my enjoyment of it, but I definitely would have had a better understanding if I had reread them. So
I'm happy I reread, especially ACOWAR, because I think when I first read it, I was just so focused on Feyre and Rhysand. And I was like, just focusing on them. That actually, when I reread it, I was like, there's so much Nesta and Cassian content in here.
Exactly. That's why I wanted to reread it, just to see that Nesta and Cassian interaction, like how Nesta was before, just so I can get a better understanding of her character in the new book. And I could not, for the life of me, remember certain things for ACOWAR. That's why I reread it as well. And I had the same fear as you as well, Brittany, that if I reread it, I wouldn't like it anymore. Because when I read ACOTAR, I kept seeing the word Baldric because of Alan with his ACOTAR reading vlog, because he noticed that in ACOTAR the word Baldric was used multiple times, and I couldn't unsee it after that. So I was like, God damn you, Alan.
You guys are making me want to reread it, though. I never thought about it that way. Like, because that in my head, that trilogy is like so focused on Feyre and Rhysand, and I didn't even like put that in my head. Like, I wonder what I missed from Nesta and Cassian. So that was smart. Good on you guys. So you guys kind of already answered this, but just maybe if you want to give a couple more thoughts about your feelings about Nesta before going into the book, because I find that depending on who I talk to, it varies quite a bit. I mean, there's similar feelings, but if you guys want to expand on that a little.
I wasn't really a fan of her going into A Court of Silver Flames. I found that I could never really forgive her for the way that she treated Feyre growing up, and how Feyre, as the youngest sibling, was the one that was expected to do everything for the family, and she just didn't really do anything. And like, that mentality, I just couldn't get over it.
Yeah.
For me, so at first, when I first read the trilogy and then Frost and Starlight, I hated Nesta. I did not understand her at all. I was like, why is she being like this? But then after my reread, focusing on her character, I understand where she's coming from. So I didn't hate her as much as I did going into A Silver Flames, because I understood where she came from and why she is the way she is. But it's not forgivable at all of what she did to Feyre. But I understood where she was coming from. So when I went into Silver Flames, I wasn't hating her, but I was very frustrated with her, like in the beginning part of Silver Flames, for sure. She was being a very B word.
Yeah, I really hated her in the first three books. And I mean, I think you're meant to, right? And I think that it was really smart of Sarah J. Maas to make this book, give her own book, so we can see into why she acts the way that she does. But yeah, I was a little bit nervous about that. But now, as my tastes have evolved, I tend to really love unlikable characters. My cat wants to join. So I kind of thought I wouldn't mind reading about an unlikable character as long as we had some type of character growth throughout it. And like, I wouldn't expect Sarah J. Maas to write an entire book for a character and like not have any character growth. So I guess I wasn't like too nervous about that aspect, but I definitely really didn't like her and was really, really, really hoping that we got something and some progress by the end. We actually got way more than I thought we would. But so I guess sort of leading into the next question, by the end of A Court of Silver Flames, how did you feel about Nesta? Like what changed? Where does she sit with you right now compared to where she started?
So Nesta's never going to be my favorite character. There's just something about her that I don't like gravitate towards. But I definitely feel for her a lot more after reading the book. Like, I can completely empathize with her. You could really see her like mental struggles, particularly at the beginning of the book, and the way that her personality grew as the book grew on. And you could really see how affected she was by what happened in the original trilogy. So I really appreciated like the growth that we saw from her personality and the friendships that she made throughout the book, and seeing her grow as her own person. But she's still not my favorite character.
Okay. But you like her better than before?
I like her a lot better than before.
Okay.
For me, I really loved Nesta after the end. Surprise, surprise. But for me, I feel like I related to Feyre's struggle more, just because of how I deal with trauma and emotions. That's how I relate more to Feyre. But then with Nesta, is the way she deals with trauma is totally different. So I couldn't relate too much emotionally to her, but because of how she went through, like you said, made emotional connections and friendships and stuff like that, and see her coming out of that trauma really like made me feel for her, and also proud of her at the same time, because you're seeing her journey from where she was and then how she was at the end of the book. So yeah, I love Nesta. She's not my favorite. Obviously, Rhysand's my favorite, but I think she's probably like the third favorite after Cassian.
Okay. So I love Nesta so much. Well, that sounds weird when I say why, but the thing is, as I was reading the book, it was a really strange experience because she's so unlikable and at times annoying, because you want to be like, this is not how you behave. This is not how you treat people. you can't just have the excuse of going through trauma. And then it hit me like a certain percentage of the way through. I was like, oh my God, I'm Nesta. And there was like certain, like I said this in my review, but my sister texted me too, because there were so many conversations that either happened between Cassian and Nesta, or Nesta and someone else, that were like actual almost word for word conversations that I've had in my life of like people trying to help me deal with my trauma. And so I think me relating so much to her just like made me enjoy the character. Cause you know how when you can like see parts of yourself in a character, it's like, it's a weird experience.
It adds an extra layer of like relatability.
Yeah, because she's really somebody that like will almost self-sabotage. So she wants to, there's a lot of quotes I read where she just wants to like sit with her demons in this pain and let it consume her because it's comforting and it's easier than trying to get better. And that's going to make you like lash out at other people and intentionally hurt other people because of your hurting. And then once you realize how much you hate yourself for hurting other people, because that's not what you want to do, then it's just like this downward spiral. So I think, I guess I related, I don't do those things anymore, but I think that I just really, I appreciated seeing all of those aspects of her dealing with the trauma that she went through. So I didn't like make a label for this, but I guess it kind of leads into the next question of how do you guys feel that Sarah J. Maas did with showing Nesta's character process and deal with her trauma and all of the emotions that she was feeling and her process of healing and accepting it and learning how to live and behave and let go of that. If you guys want to just talk a little bit about your feelings towards that.
I mean, I think I haven't experienced a lot of what Nesta has gone through, but I think she did a really good job with it. And I've seen that Sarah said that it's a very like emotional book for her, and that it took a lot out of her writing Nesta and her story, and it was very personal to her. So I feel as though you could really see that in the writing of the book, that you could really see how much Sarah J. Maas was affected by it. And I think it was done really well. Like, I think that you could really see the progression of the character. Like, it was a very character-led story, and you could really see how at the beginning Nesta was so self-destructive, and then really slowly and gradually she improved. Well, not improved, but like she was able to deal with her emotions and figure out, she could see what she was doing wrong. And that was the hard thing. She could see, like, that scene where they're at the camp and she's like, no, I'm not doing it. Even though she knows that she should do it, but she's just like refusing. She's like, I'm going to sit on the rock and do nothing. And you're like, come on, pull yourself together. You can. And then like the gradual, like her just slowly getting past it and like working in the library and seeing that gradual development. I thought it was done really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. I agree. It was done extremely well. I think compared to how she did Farah's like whole trauma situation in Court of Mist and Fury, I feel like Nesta's was more, I don't know, for me it felt more kind of realistic, and a lot of people can relate to it, and it felt very personal as well, like you said, Abby. And I remember Sarah J. Maas saying that this is a very personal series to her. So whatever she writes, it comes from her, like her experiences and stuff. So it felt very personal, and just seeing Nesta go through that and like taking, like with the stairs that she goes down, it's like taking however many steps forward, and sometimes she goes like a few steps back with her progression and stuff. And that's very realistic, as we see like with Farah, it's just a gradual progression, and there was not really like steps back. But with Nesta, we see that like going forwards, going back, which is very realistic, to be honest, when you're going through trauma and you take like a couple steps forward, a couple steps back. And yeah, it was just done very, very well.
Yeah, I completely agree. I love what you said there too about the not linear progress, because that's so unrealistic. Yeah, having like, obviously I haven't been through what Nesta has been through, but having been through like my fair share of trauma, I so greatly appreciated how she took the time to incorporate all of these different aspects in her healing process, because I don't want to say like I get mad, but if a book shows somebody dealing with trauma as just one thing and then they're better, like, you know, one aspect, it's just not a book for me, because that doesn't make sense in my head. So with her, I was so thrilled as I kept reading that it wasn't just going to be her training with Cassian, because I maybe would have gave the book like 3.5 stars or something like that if that was the case, and I was worried about it at the beginning. I was like, oh my God, is she just going to get better through working out with Cassian and falling in love with this guy? You know what I mean? And
kind of like a repeat.
Yeah.
It's and like a repeat.
Yeah. And I think that, movement and like fresh air and doing these things can be super helpful for a lot of people in like occupying their hands and minds and whatever. But then also we had her learning from the ladies in the library of like the meditation, basically her little mantra that she said about the waves breaking on the shore. Like I literally told myself that a few times during the process of reading this book. When I would be like stressing about something, I would like repeat that. It was helpful. But then like her, not only those things, but like her finding what she was passionate about and disregarding what her sisters are up to or what the rest of the inner circle is doing. Her finding like, I'm interested in this with like the Valkyrie and wanting to help these females, and knowing that she can help them through the process of training and getting their strength back and helping to empower themselves. I just thought it was the best thing ever. Like it was just so
female friendships was the best.
Yeah.
So realistic and so good.
I was so happy to see her sort of break away a little bit from the Night Court and like that group and like form her own friendships and like develop away from her sisters and like just bond with new people and like get out from that and sort of have that separation from her family.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is like one of my favorite parts too, because I think maybe in the past she might have just had her like go in with the inner circle, become Feyre's friend, like make up with her sisters and then be part of that group. And I thought it was so smart for her to write Nesta's character, making her own group of friends, paving her own path, having something of her own. I just thought it was brilliant. Like I thought it meant a lot to me, like as something that might have been similar to like, you know, what I've done in the past. And I just loved that part of it.
It shows the importance of like female friendships for like us girls when we're going through something. The importance of female friendships is like in this book is so good. I swear to God, that was my favorite bit of the whole book.
Like I really
that was my favorite part.
Emery and them as people, especially Gwyn. I really liked Gwyn.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you guys think about, they're called Valkyrie, right? But did they have a different name? Like the group that because she was trying to like make a mixture of things, or are they just calling themselves like
Valkyries, I think. I don't think there was like a separate name for it just yet. Not from my memory.
So do you guys think that we will see more about that like in the future? Or like what were your thoughts about her creating this like women warrior group?
I liked it. I mean, I really liked the history of it, and I would have probably liked even more of it because I really like when we explore the lore in this world. And just hearing about these fighter women, I was like, oh, these sound like such cool women. And yeah, I'd have liked to see more of that history interwoven in. But it was so cool seeing how they were like reviving that history, and when they were like taken into that warrior trial, you're like, oh yes, you can really see them bonding as a unit and seeing their friendships like flourish. And I mean, I'd hope that we'd see more of it. I don't know how much we will, because like the next books are going to be focusing on other characters, so I don't know how much it's going to like play a part in the rest of the series.
Yeah, I have a weird fascination with Valkyrie and like Amazonian women. They're just so like strong and great. I have a weird obsession with Valkyries. But with that input in the book, it made me like the book so much better. Plus with the friendships as well. Like that was, it makes me want to change my rating back to 5 because it's just so good.
It was, and
yeah,
it was like, I don't know, the feminist themes in this where they are trying to change, like, yes, there is like sexism within this world that she has created, but I just really appreciated that there was conversation even from the males in this book about making things equal and them fighting for equality. I just really appreciated that, I guess.
100%. Because I don't think she's really done that in any of her books. Like that kind of conversation, like the amount of conversation that she has in this one, I don't think she's done in any other books, which I also really, really appreciate as well.
Yeah, and that's why I feel like she blew me away, because I guess I wasn't expecting a lot of these things that she put into this book. So it's a good surprise.
Same. I feel like this is like on a different level than her other books. It feels, like I said, very personal and very like realistic of everyone's life. If you're dealing with something, anything, like this is very realistic towards that.
Yes, yeah. So my next question is, what did you guys think about, okay, first of all, tell me like a couple things in your answer here. Do you guys usually read like romance, whether it's like fantasy romance? Do you like romance in your books? And are you used to reading romance this much? And what did you think of the scenes in this book? Give me a lot here.
Okay, so I enjoy a romantic subplot in my fantasy books, whether that's just like a minor plot device or like when it's really in the book. I like it all. I really enjoy having romance. I don't read that much like full-on romance because I like fantasy too much and I don't really read about the real world. But I would say, if we're moving on to this book in particular, it was very steamy. It was much steamier than like other Sarah J. Maas books that I've read. I wasn't expecting this level of smut. I was like expecting like Akamath levels, and I got this, and I was like, whew. And there was one scene which I was reading, and my boyfriend came in and he started reading over my shoulder, and I literally slammed the book shut. I was like, no. I was like, hopefully he didn't see that. It was on a particular scene, and for me, I feel as though it got smutty very, very quickly, and part of me would have liked a little bit more like development of the characters and their personal relationship before we dived into that. Just as a personal preference, I wanted a little bit more angst.
Yeah.
Oh yes. So I read not a lot, but I read romance and also fantasy romance. I feel like I need to read more of that because I feel like that's my niche. So for this, I completely enjoyed it because I know this one, she classified this as like new adult. So she really unleashed herself with this one. Like everything she had, she put into this book, and it was great. I really enjoyed it so much. Yeah, my boyfriend didn't look over my shoulder or anything, but he knew, but he didn't say anything.
That's funny.
Yeah, he knows. It's fine. It was just so good. I mean, like with each of the scenes, I was like, what is happening? I love this.
That's so funny.
And it's also with their relationship, like you said, it's like your personal preference. Like you wanted more angst. And again, with her relationship with Cassian, it's so realistic. Someone going through something, they don't want anything like attachment or anything. They just want release. And with that relationship with Cassian, I felt like that was also, again, very realistic as well. So that was great.
So I am like a little bit different. I like avoid romance at all costs. I'm like, what fantasy books can I pick up that don't have romance in it? There are plenty of romances in books that I like. It's not like I'm anti-romance or anything like that. I just don't prefer to read about it just because I like, I don't know, magic or world building or like personal development type of things better. So I've no experience reading smut in books at all, other than Sarah J. Maas.
No.
None. And I remember a complaint that people had of this. I'm not going to like spoil anything, but for House of Earth and Blood, Crescent City, is people were like, oh, there wasn't enough of those types of scenes and stuff. And I was like, maybe she was listening to that feedback, perhaps, or something. I don't know. This is a lot. It was a lot. So for me personally, like if I were going to decrease my rating, it would be because of the frequency and like how in detail we went every single time. Because I was like, oh, we get it. Or like she would be like thinking about it the next morning and going into detail again. I'm like, but we just saw the scene. You just told us how it was happening when it was happening. We don't have to remember about how it was happening. But like I'm not like criticizing it because I don't think it like shouldn't be that way. It just like as a reader, that's not what I'm generally looking for. But with saying that, I do have to say I think that it was really well done and like it seemed like realistic things other than I hate when books make it like every single time is the best. Like the mountains are, falling down. You know what I mean? Like I like a Joe Abercrombie book where he like says like the funny things that happen during sex. You know what I mean? Because it's like, I like realistic aspects of it. So it was maybe over the top, but the encounters I feel like were pretty realistic. So I thought, it was good. I finished the book and I was like, I don't need to read romance again for a long time.
I'm a very romantic person, so I love all the romance. Just give me all the romance, I will read it.
Oh, that's good though. I'm a jaded lady.
It's just because of my mom. She has always liked romance, so she put me on romance. So it's like passing it down. And she loved A Still of Flames as well, by the way. But she had the same issues as me as well, but she still loved it.
Cool. So let's see. Let's talk a little bit about the plot versus like her character development in this book, because I have, just from like comments I've gotten on my review, there's definitely a lot of variation in people's opinion, because certain people, especially if you couldn't necessarily relate too much to Nesta, it might have been lacking a bit in the plot of this book. So I would love to hear your guys' opinions on, did you want more plot, or just what you think about the plot in general versus the focus on her character development?
This is where I have deducted my half star, because I would have liked a little bit more plot. Like I can really appreciate like how much went into the character development and how Nesta's character grew, but I would have liked a little bit more of a plot, because it felt as though the plot sort of just got thrown in, that there didn't feel as though there were very many high stakes. Like there were a few bits there was a little bit, but there didn't seem to be too high the stakes. And then everything happened in the last 100 pages that it literally was the them taken to the Illyrian trial or whatever, the Illyrian battle thing, and then it all happened very quickly with Cassian over in one place with what's his name, the wizard, and whatever their name was, and then
none of us are helping.
It all just happened very, very quickly, right at the end, with that warrior trial, with the queen coming in, with the wizard, and then suddenly Feyre giving birth, and you're like, I feel as though it could have been extended a little bit at the end so that we had a little bit more of development with the plot, so that it didn't seem so rushed. It felt as though a lot of the book was very well structured and well constructed with the character development, and then suddenly she was like, I haven't really got any plot here because I focused so much on the character that I need to suddenly have a plot and put it all into the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of agree. Like that is where like my half star was gone, just with the plot, because I'm so used to plots when it comes to Sarah J. Maas books, because it's like a mixture of character development and plot. Even if it's like character development is like the forefront of it, there's still a little bit more plot than in this one. So that was also my issue. And like you said, Abby, like the majority of what happened was like the last 100 pages. And it felt way too fast. But then afterwards, I realized, because she said that the plot is going to be overarching all the other books, and each book would be a different character. I think that's why there's not much plot in this, because she wants to probably explore it more in the other books, which is fine. But I feel like she just could have done a little bit more than what she put in this Silver Flames book.
Yeah, I totally I agree with you guys. Definitely totally see where you're coming from. I think because the thing I cared about the most was Nesta's character development and like healing through her trauma, it didn't affect me as much as like my sister read the book and she loved it too, but that was why she couldn't give it 5 stars, because she's like, I felt like the plot was completely in the background, and it really wasn't about it. But I think too, for me, I was fine with the balance between the two, but the plot got pretty predictable at times. I think, it was just like the classic, oh, okay, so they're gonna fight, and then she's getting taken, and then he can't talk to her because of her using her little thing that says like, you have to do what I say or whatever, you know what I mean? And so I found some of the elements of the story a little bit predictable, but like not in a way that hindered my enjoyment. I was still like fine with it. I was like,
also with
honestly, like I really enjoyed it, even though I could predict things, and there were so many plot conveniences, and I was like, I don't really care. I'm having so much fun. Like the way they're in, when they're in the bog scene, and she was like, I could just sense the crown. It just came to me when I was in the water. I was like, obviously, you could just sense it. It just came to you. It was so convenient that it was in that part of the bog. And like the whole right at the end with Feyre giving birth, and you're like, okay, obviously she's going to survive. Like you knew Sarah wasn't going to kill her off, so it just seemed very convenient in some places. But I just didn't really care. I was like, oh, I've had such a good time reading it, so why do I need to care about these plot conveniences?
Yeah,
I agree as well. And also with the dread trove, like them finding the 3 things, did that remind anyone about the Deadly Hallows? How they found all the Horcruxes? Yeah. And then in this one, they were trying to find all 3 as well. It just reminded me of that.
No, I see that. But that was the word that I was looking for too, Abby, was the plot conveniences, because I had to like roll my eyes. But I think that for at least me, I can't judge every book like on the same things. And if I'm reading a Sarah J. Maas book, I'm not looking for like the most
profound things.
Yeah. It's not like, oh, this better be the most mind-blowing plot and tricky and you never saw it coming and no conveniences. Because I mean, that's just not really what I think most readers are reading her books for anyways. So I think that's why it was like, it wasn't a big deal to me that we could predict some of the things throughout the plot.
Yeah, because we still enjoyed it and it's entertaining.
Yeah.
And we're there for mostly the characters and also obviously the smut as well, at least for me.
Yeah. So do you guys have a favorite part of the book? Like it could either be a scene or just like a favorite aspect of it.
Who's Abby frozen?
Frozen.
Hopefully she'll be back.
Oh, here we go. I was like, I don't want to remove it.
Sorry, my internet had a moment.
Did you hear? I just said, is there any particular favorite scene or favorite aspect of the book that you wanted to talk about?
I really liked the personality of the house and like the way, just the house's personality and how like the house bonded with Nesta and Nesta with the house, and like when the house showed Nesta its heart, and like the scenes when they had the slumber party with like the bath and the like that whole like
the unicorn. Really cute. Oh no, is it a Pegasus? Yeah, it's a Pegasus. For me was their little moment just before they climbed the mountain during the whole like the tournament stuff, is where they, just before they climbed the mountain, they had that little moment and their confessions, and that made them closer. That was my favorite part of the whole thing. It almost made me cry, and I don't cry in books.
That was a really beautiful scene.
That was my favorite scene.
That was definitely. I think for me, my favorite part was when Pharaoh was giving birth, and I don't like, I cry really easily for movies, but I never cry in books. And I was crying. And I was like, I didn't even think I liked Rhysand and Feyre. And like, when I was worried about the fate of all of them tied together, which I was like, really? Like, I was like, why did we do that? You know what I mean? Why? But I was so concerned for them. And I don't know, she really sucked me into it, because in those moments, I was like, she might kill Feyre, but then I was like, okay, she can't kill all of them. Like, that's not going to happen. But still, I was believing it for a second. So when Nesta just like fully came into power and was able to help them all, I don't know, I was so emotional, because it was like she was having the conversations like in her head during that point. And it was the one, I wish I had written it down before this, but the scene where basically she was like, she didn't say this word for word, but she was like, I don't want to be miserable or like almost even not care about living anymore. And they had said like, so live, like do it. I just like lost it, because I don't know, just there's so much beauty when that moment clicks, and it's like, you can choose to live, and you can choose to accept this pain, and you can live with the hurt, but know that the sun is still going to shine. You still have people that love you. Like, your life will go on, and you can choose to live. And I just thought it was beautiful. I thought it was like, I don't know, one of the like deepest moments in a Sarah J. Maas book that I had ever read. I thought it was so beautiful.
That was also, I think, my other issue was Nesta lost her power, and now we can't really explore her powers more, because I feel like that one wasn't really explored that much, and now it's gone. And it's like, how can we learn more about her powers? It was still like a mystery.
Did it say that she still had a kernel of it?
Yeah, but what are we gonna do with that?
Maybe we'll get a plot convenience in the future.
She got it back.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't put it past her. Yeah, because I feel like we just saw her like get her strength and power, and that is sad. But I feel like maybe she had to put that in there because there had to be like some kind of consequence. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to talk about, which I think I already know your answer, Vish, because maybe I don't, maybe you'll surprise me. But, I haven't always been the biggest Rhysand fan for some reasons. I loved him in the past. And then like, as time goes on, I'm like, it's a little shady behavior. But so we were talking about the scene where she was giving birth, which made me think of it. I'm so sorry to say this. I hated Rhysand this whole book. I hated him. And somebody, I don't remember who it was, but somebody commented on my review and said, well, you have to remember who you're seeing him through someone's eyes that really dislikes him. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, that makes more sense, because I never thought of it that way. But still, I still don't know if that made up for all of it. So I'm really curious. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that.
So going into it, I really liked Rhysand during the original trilogy. I'd say that he was a bit of he wasn't the nicest in this book. And that, as you said, it might be because you're seeing him through Nesta's eyes, and she doesn't have the rose-tinted glasses that Feyre has. But he didn't really come across as the nicest person in this. And you did want to go, Rhys, why won't you treat her with some more respect?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel as though you did have that shift when he found her and she was dreaming, and he went into the dream and he saw what she was suffering. And I feel as though that did shift his personality a bit and the way that he interacted with Nesta. And so going forward from that point, you sort of saw how he sort of changed his views towards her a bit.
Yeah.
Okay, so I love Rhysand, that's apparent, but he was so annoying.
Okay,
This one.
I was like,
He was so annoying. He was so annoying. Because yeah, you're right. Because we're seeing it from Nesta's perspective. Obviously, Rhysand's going to be annoying, and he was very annoying. I was like, what's wrong with you? use your head. So with that, and yeah, you're right. After that dream sequence, he kind of shifted his perspective of her, but he still was very hostile to her. Just because, like with you, Abby, you said that you wouldn't forgive Nesta because of how she treated Farah when they were starving, and I think Rhysand is the same. He didn't forgive her of how she treated Farah. But with that scene after like giving birth and what Nesta sacrificed, and that whole total shift with Rhysand afterwards, I was like, there he is. So, yeah, that's fine.
I think my issues more so lie with him being so possessive over Feyre, and like him speaking for her. That just really boils my blood.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just like, excuse me, I don't think Feyre needs you to speak for her ever. I think she can speak for herself. And I know she fought back against it. It wasn't just like not, what's the word I'm looking for? She wasn't okay with it. And I appreciated that, but I was just like, are we trying to all hate Rhysand in this book? So I'm curious to see how that will be the same or different in later books, I suppose.
I mean, I think I'd have been annoyed if someone had put a protective shield around me constantly to have this shield on you. You would want, I mean, as Feyre, you'd want to be like, just give me a little bit of space.
Yeah, and withholding information from her, you know?
That was very out of character, I feel, but whatever.
So,
yeah, I think if I was Feyre, I would have been very, very annoyed.
I think
she was very hurt.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're good. I think there's like a lag time between when we're talking. But Cassian is like the perfect mixture, you know what I mean? Because he is not like territorial, but what is the word for like a good amount of being possessive? Like, I don't know.
He's normal.
He's normal about it, but he also like had so much faith in her. Like, how did you guys feel about Cassian during this whole book?
I love Cassian.
You go first, Abby.
Yeah, no, I loved him as a love interest. Like, he was protective without being overly protective. Like, you could see that he wanted Nesta to grow. He wanted Nesta to like have her own personality and like her own journey, but he wanted to be there for her. And you could see how he was like, I'm ready whenever you need me. And I was like, yes, Cassian, just I really liked him. I liked him, just his personality and like the dynamic that they had, and him, like,
he's such a cute little puppy dog. I love him so much in this. You're right. He gives you the right amount of space, and he lets you grow, and he lets you have like Nesta created friendships and stuff like that, and that was one of my like greatest things, just because he was there, but she also had separate friendships with Gwyn and Emery, but he was always there watching and helping her, like in the background. And I love Cassian so much.
And the banter.
Oh
yeah,
so good.
Like, he knows how to do banter, like the banter between them.
Oh yeah.
I think they're so good for each other. Like, I just do think that they seem good for each other and like a healthy balance. And it makes me so happy to see like a healthy relationship where they have equal say. I don't know. Have you guys seen any fan art for this book? Because afterwards I'm like, why can't I meet a Cassian? Like, where's my Cassian?
I don't know if you can see that, but I have fan art just right there.
I love it. That's great. Okay, so what did you guys think about what's going on with, is it Brielyn? Or that's her name? I don't have the most thoughts about that. I'd love to hear what you guys think about her as a villain and everything that happened, just because I didn't care as much about the plot throughout the book. So what do you guys think?
I feel like she was a bit of a lackluster villain, that she wasn't really there. I'm more intrigued by the wizard, whatever his name is. I've forgotten what his name is.
O'Shea? I think that's his name.
Him.
Yeah.
I feel as though he's going to have much more of a role as the books go on. Because he's the brother of the bone carver and them. I feel as though he's definitely older and has much. You don't really know much about his background yet, and I feel as though that's where the story is going with the plot and like the evil villain now.
Yeah, Berlin was just a lackluster villain as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she also died really fast. I was like, that's it. That's a whole like thing. She's there, she controlled Cassian, now she's dead. Oh, okay, cool. It's so fast. But I'm definitely very interested to see how she will use Koschei as a villain, just because we've had a lot of good villains through all of Sarah J. Maas books. So hopefully this will be on par as well for all of them.
Yeah. I just think she was like summarizing what you guys said, definitely a lackluster, just not a very good villain to make you feel like the stakes were super high. I guess I also had a hard time like believing character motivations for some part, like for the villains, not any of like our main protagonists. But I don't know if I just wasn't paying attention as much to those sections, or maybe just as much thought wasn't put into it, like to make it believable. But yeah, I agree with what you guys said. So
I'm conflicted on what's his name, Eris.
Yeah,
I'm like, is he good? Is he bad? I don't really know because I don't know what his motivations are.
Because he has said a few times, like, ask Morgan the real story. So I'm like, is Morgan lying? What's happening? I don't know.
So that kind of to this next one. I know you said you don't do predictions, but just like talking about future things in this series, I'm ready for like everybody to have their own book at this point. Like I could use one because here I'm not dyslexic, but I always say it. I always say Armin. It's not Armin, is it? Is it Amron?
Amron.
Okay. Yeah. I want that book. I want Morgan book. I want an Elaine book, like Azriel. I want a book for the like lady friends that she made I just want it all. So give me any predictions if you have them, or like what you hope to see in the future.
Well, part of me is trying to figure out what the next book is going to be, and I haven't read the like Azriel chapter yet, or the bonus content, because I was saving it for a rainy day when I was feeling really down. But so I'm like wondering if it's the next book's going to be like an Azriel book, and if he's going to be with Elaine or Gwyn, like how that's all going to pan out, and like Elaine with what's his name, Lucian. Like, how is that all going to pan out? Like who's going to end up with who? What's Morgan been doing over in? Can't remember the place.
What's his face? I have no idea.
What's she been doing over there? Because she was pretty much not in this book. Like, where was she? What was she doing? Because it's also very mysterious, really. Like, what's she doing over there? Has she met someone? Is she going to end up with Emery? Like, there's a lot that could happen. Again, I think that the wizard is going to be more in the next few books, and I'd definitely be interested in seeing more of. Oh, I've forgotten her name. The princess that turns into a swan. Vasa, yeah. The princess that turns into a swan, and like how that all might play in, because I find that really interesting, like how she's got this curse on her. And I'd also like to see more of. There's been quite a few mentions in this book about the like linking between the worlds. Like there's a few Easter eggs, so seeing hints of like the different worlds, and if she's going to be able to link the Throne of Glass world with this world, and like
can you imagine
between them?
Can you imagine? It would be so cool if she did that.
I mean, there were so many mentions in this of that that it really makes me think as though she's really heading towards a link between her series, so much more than what she's said in the past.
Yes, I think I'm the same. I think she is probably going to make a book for each character, but I'm not sure which one would be next. But I think I'm predicting is either Azriel or Morgan. And with Morgan, it would be interesting to see because she's bisexual. So it's going to be that type of relationship. And I want to see Sarah J. Maas explore that and see how well she does with that, because that would be very cool as well. And with the villain, yeah, I'm not sure with Koschei, to be honest. I just wanted to. I'm
anxious about her writing a bisexual relationship as the main the main character dynamic, because it's a fear of, you want those sort of stories to be told by people that are own voices, at least personally. So I don't know like how well she's going to do at that.
Yeah, that's why I'm like very curious to see how she does it and how well she does it, even though she's not what do you call it? Oh God, I'm blanking. She's not bisexual, so she wouldn't know how to write that kind of relationship. I definitely agree with that, but I want to see how she does it and if she does it well. And with the villain and stuff, I have no idea. And I hope we see more of Baron. I think it's like the Autumn Court, Eris's dad, because he was mentioned a lot, but we didn't see him at all.
Yeah,
because he was prepared to like take over the whole Perithian. And with Tamlin as well, we saw him as like a beast, and then that was it. So I want to see more of him and how he progresses. Maybe we would get a Tamlin book.
Tamlin Redemption.
I'd be open to it. I'd be open.
I'd be open.
Yeah,
I'd be open to it too.
If she probably could do a Tamlin Redemption arc, and I'll be here for it.
Yeah.
And also that Lucian isn't actually the son of the Autumn Court, is he? He's the son of the Dawn Court, and that's hardly been explored. It's not as though it's just been like mentioned just here and there. And you're like, okay, so you know that that's that, but it's not being explored. You don't know, like, they don't know it, do they? Like, Lucian doesn't know.
Yeah. I don't think they, like, Lucian and the High Lord of, I think it's Day Court. Is it Day Court or Dawn Court? I don't know. But that him and Lucian don't know. So that'll be interesting to see when it comes out and how it comes out. I think that will probably be explored in, like, a Lucian book. And with, like, if it's like an Elaine book, I want to see with Azrael versus Lucian, because that's like a totally different thing. Because in a Court of, like, Akatar and with Silver Flames, like, we knew both of them were going to be mates. But with this, we wouldn't know because Lucian is Elaine's mate, but she's not acting like it. And she could end up with Azrael. So it's kind of like the fighting of the mating bond. So that'll be interesting to see as well.
I do think that would be a really interesting aspect to explore that we really haven't seen much of. So that does make me excited. I think there are so many little threads that she's started, like little mentions of things, like even with the princess who is cursed and just all these little things that are so exciting that I'm like, have you guys heard it all? If it's going to be another trilogy or if it's going to keep going? Because I feel like we can't, there's so many things, there's so many more things than two more books.
I think there's 5 more books. I think there's 5 more books.
Okay, good.
Oh, I thought it was 2. Oh, okay.
5 would make me so happy.
I think there's 5.
So I'm kind of shocked because for me, I thought she would do a book for Elaine next because everyone just says like she's boring right now, but really like we don't know anything about her. So I mean, maybe she's not boring.
I like Elaine. When everyone says she's boring, I'm like, no, I like her.
She's not.
And we got a little bit more, just a tiny bit in this book of her being like, no, I pay attention. Like I know what's going on. I'm not stupid. And I really want to hear her perspective of all of these events that have been taking place and even just her perspective of the sibling relationship of the 3 of them and like how she feels about everything and where she fits in. So I'm kind of hoping we get that next along with some of the other things as well. But I definitely think that, what did we say their names are? Baron and then his son is Eris.
Eris, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that, to me, they felt like he was going to be more the villain and like Eris, we don't know what he's doing. So I definitely feel like he will show up again in the next couple books. Like, I don't think that has ended. I feel like maybe this was just like a little subplot on the way to that bigger plot. I'm not too sure. I'm terrible at predictions, but I would love to see that play out.
Yeah, I mean, I
want more Nesta and Cassian.
I like Elaine. I'm like, why does everyone not like Elaine? I feel as though we haven't seen in her head yet. So yes, she seems like quite a passive character, but I think there's a lot going on in her head that we just haven't seen yet.
And also it's different because all of them are not passive characters except Elaine. So it'll be interesting to see, like you said, what goes on in her head. And with that one scene where Nesta was just lashing out and Elaine just laughed in her face, that's not a passive character, people.
Yeah. I think also it would be good for her to have a book like that for some other types of personalities to relate to, rather than somebody so overpowering, over the top, like super expressive or just super in their emotions. I keep referencing my sister because I haven't talked about this book with a lot of people yet, but she's like, I love Elaine too. And I'm dying to hear from Elaine because she relates to somebody who is not like Nesta or Feyre and has more of a middle ground, seemingly more level and not all these ups and downs or issues. So I think it would probably benefit a lot of people to have a character that they can relate to.
Maybe that's why I feel like I like Elaine, because I feel like I could relate to her a bit more. Like, she seems like she holds a lot in, and that you could see like Nesta and Feyre's struggles, and you can see how they vocalized it. Whereas Elaine, I think, is a much more of an internal struggle, and like you don't necessarily know what's going on like behind the scenes. And the way that she sort of deals with it with her gardening and like the quiet like hobbies that she has, I feel like I can relate to that.
Yeah, me too. Definitely can relate to that as well. That's why I really want to see what goes on in her head.
Yeah, I feel like I need to do like some digging or research, because I didn't know a couple of the other things, even about what Sarah J. Maas had put into this book from her own personal experiences. I don't think I even knew that. So I want to know more about those things now, but I feel like we're not going to get the next book for quite some time. Is there
I
like...
hope we get the second Crescent City book.
And when is that? Next year or this year?
I think it might be this year or next year. I'm not sure.
I think it's next March. I think it's like a year from now.
Okay, so then probably, so that's 2022. So probably 2023 we'll get the next book. I'm not okay with that.
I'm not okay with that either.
You know, if it's this good though, we can wait. If it's this good, take your time. Be patient.
I remember back in the day when Sarah J. Maas was getting 2 books out a year.
Yeah, that's why I was like, maybe she's going to go back to that schedule, but I don't know.
No, I think I think she said in one of her lives that it was going to be next year now. But I always miss when she does her Instagram lives because I'm sleeping.
I've only seen a couple, and she's so funny. I love her. So funny.
She's so pretty.
She is, yes. Her hair.
Yeah.
I saw one with her and her husband, and it was just really cute. Okay, what do you guys think? Did I leave out any like main points that you guys wanted to discuss?
I think that was pretty much it, to be honest. Because we covered pros and cons and predictions, favorite characters. Oh, was there any like non-favorite characters?
No.
I don't think so. Maybe Rhysand for a little bit.
I was going to say, we're like apathetic about some characters. Like even Breland, I was just like, can we be done? Like, you know what I mean? I don't know. I just didn't think she was that interesting.
No. I think she could have done a lot with like Breland and her emotions, because she wanted to be young, and when she didn't get that, she became really old. Obviously, that's going to have some consequences to her, I guess, mental health, if you want to call it. So with that emotions, we didn't really explore that. She was just there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think that covers most of what I had planned to talk about. So this was super fun. Thank you guys for joining us on Worldhoppers today. Chat with us in the comments. Let us know what you guys thought of A Court of Silver Flames. I can't wait to hear some more opinions, see what everyone thought. And if you guys don't have anything else to add, then I guess we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.